We had a lot of firsts in the law this last week. We had Law Day, which has been around for a while, but it was the first one in this new Trump administration to protest in the streets by former judges and lawyers and law students and the lovers of the rule of law. We could protest against this lawless Trump administration. So that was a first. We got Ketanji Brown Jackson, who broke her silence and spoke out as a Supreme Court justice while still in session, apparently. The Supreme Court's still in session at a Puerto Rican conference in which she got a standing ovation, the first standing ovation for a sitting Supreme Court justice during this Trump administration, for coming out and shoving back against the lawlessness of the Trump administration and its bashing of law firms and judges. And another first, to bookend the standing ovation, we had Edwin Kneedler, who you don't know, but everybody that's in the know in the Supreme Court world knows. 46 years in the Solicitor General's office, and he just kind of said, I'm not doing this anymore for the Trump administration. After 160 oral arguments and mentoring hundreds of people that went through the Solicitor General's office, he said enough is enough. And the response by the United States Supreme Court, another standing ovation for the rule of law embodied by Edwin Kneedler. And then, so we put those two things together, talk about the rule of law and why it's so important. And we do it in one place that I know of on the YouTube dial, Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip. And Ketanji Brown Jackson goes to Puerto Rico for the First Circuit Judicial Conference, which covers Puerto Rico and Maine and I think Massachusetts. And she's in a room full of people who believe in the rule of law, if anything. They may not all agree on everything or what they're going to order at Sweetgreens, but they all agree that the rule of law is important. So she's preaching to the choir, but it's the right place to preach. And she steps out. This is while the term is still going on. I mean, this isn't like in the summer and she's in Lake Como in Italy, like Alito being paid for some boondoggle or Thomas. This is like we're still in session. Court's still in session. And she says, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege on May 1st, on Rule of Law Day, and defend the attacks by this administration, which she called the elephant in the room, but we knew what she meant, against federal judges who are now, as you said earlier in the podcast, Ben, who are now suffering attacks, federal marshals being assigned to them. One of them confided, I can't name the name because it wasn't given to me, but Sidney Blumenthal on one of his hot takes with me said a very close friend of his who is a federal judge says that it is having a chilling effect and an impact on federal judges in doing their job, which is exactly what Donald Trump wants. So they almost like confessed it. And so she defended them and called out the elephant in the room and said, judges and the independent judiciary, just as de Tocqueville said in 1830 about the independent bench bar in lawyers, are the firewall that protect our democracy. And the fact that we're talking about judges being attacked relentlessly by this administration and its head, Donald Trump, is a complete disrespect and disgrace for everything that our democracy stands for. And while she was acknowledging that and got a standing ovation, earlier in the week, Edwin Kneedler, after 46 years and 160 oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court, the Roberts Court, all 9, took the opportunity to call him back to the podium when he was done. He's decided, I've had enough. I've seen every administration, including the last Trump administration. I am not going to do this administration's bidding any longer. I have too much self-worth. I have too much value in my ethics. I'm not doing it. He didn't say these things, but it's obvious this is the reason, 100 days in, he's heading for the door. He's in good health. He's been doing this a long time. And he is the one. He's the citizen Solicitor General, that is the mentor for generations of lawyers in that office who looked up to him, to Kneedler. And Roberts calls him up. There's no audio. I looked for the audio. There's no audio of this. He calls him up to both advocates after the end of the oral argument and says, Mr. Kneedler, I don't know if you know this. This was your 160th oral argument. It set a record. And a lot of murmuring for people that watched it. And he said, you embody everything that's right about the rule of law, about integrity, about candor to the tribunal. We can trust you and what you say. And all I heard then when I read these remarks was this was the rebuke that we've been waiting for John Roberts when he had the opportunity as a proxy against Donald Trump. And at the end of that support for the rule of law, and the living embodiment of it in Kneedler. All 9 justices, in a rare showing of unanimity and support and collegiality and being a real brethren, stood up and applauded. And according to people in the room, everybody's face on the dais, on the bench, was beaming. So this wasn't like sometimes you're like at a Broadway show and, well, do I really have to give this a standing ovation? Was it really that good? Everybody supported this guy. And then he exited the room. And that actually stands, that metaphor, right? The rule of law exiting the room, that bookends of those standing ovations, I think are important to talk about. This is how we can, until there's another election midterm, this is the ways that we can rebel and resist. These are the points of action. And we in this community that you and I have built, Legal AF, and you and your brothers built Midas Touch by that extension, it's important that we activate the fellowship, that we have to talk truth to each other. And we're doing that every way, every hour, every podcast here and on Legal AF. But it's also, we talk about how to activate that and put that into action. We have to be action figures, right? We can't just, right? It's superheroes and action figures, and we've got to be superhero action figures and be the foot soldiers to protect our Constitution. And we're watching the leaders, and you have them on regularly on the Midas Touch Network, whether it's Letitia James, or we've had Jamie Raskin, or it's other people who voice the concerns. But we as a community can do our own part for it as we prepare for the election. And I think we're doing our part. Hopefully, we're doing the entertaining education part in a way, as you said earlier, that mainstream media either ignores, talks down to its audience, or just refuses, doesn't think there's any ratings or money in talking about, the 101-page decision by Beryl Howell, while we think it's the opposite. Whatever else they're selling between commercials, that's the junk. This is where the rubber meets the road. And I think our audience, Legal AFers and Midas Mighty, recognize that. Welcome back. Every Wednesday and Saturday, Legal AF, the podcast. I founded it 5 years ago or so with Ben Meiselas. I think we called it Legal Roundup back then. But now that brand, Legal AF, I think stands for something with our audience. It stands for telling truth. It stands for telling truth to each other without blowing smoke or sunshine. It stands to never compromising our ethics, bringing you the best in legal commentary at the intersection of law and politics that is out there in an informative way. We do it without being patronizing. We do it in a way that's informative, yet also entertaining. And we do it in a way that you can trust. And I brought with me on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, which I'm asking you now to subscribe to as well, a dozen other contributors who feel the exact same way. Thanks for being with us on Legal AF, the podcast. Listen to us on audio podcast platforms of your choice. Watch us on the YouTube. Come over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel itself, Legal AF MTN, and then we got a brand new Substack, Legal AF Substack. It's another way to support our show. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.